Hello, my name is Mrs. Thomas, and I'm a history teacher at Prince Henry's. And I'm going to speak to you this evening about making your revision stick. So, essentially, how to make sure that all of their hard work they put in is there for them in the exam situation when they need to recall it and use it in an exam answer. So, it is estimated that your brain needs to repeat information 5 times to move it into long-term memory. And this is where it needs to be for exams. So there are 5 steps to long-term memory when we look at the journey towards GCSEs. The first time students come across information will be learning it for the first time in class. The second time they're going to go over that information potentially is when they're revising for their mock exams. So we often get feedback from students such as, what's the point in the mock exams? Mock exams don't count for anything. What happens to me if I don't do very well? They don't matter. The mock exams are a crucial step in embedding this information into their long-term memory. If they don't revise for the mock exams or they do very little, and the first time they revise is for the GCSEs, they've missed that opportunity to get this information into their long-term memory. But as you can see, if they do learn the information first time in class and they do revise for their mocks and they do revise thoroughly for their GCSEs, that's still only 3 times that they've gone over that information. So within that revision, there needs to be a lot of repetition, and it's this repeating the material that ultimately helps it go into long-term memory. So we're going to look at now ways that students like to repeat material. And generally, these ways that they like to repeat material are not very effective. One of these is highlighting. Highlighting done well is a really effective revision tool. If they're highlighting with a purpose, and they're selecting key information that they don't yet remember easily, or they're selecting key information to help them support an answer in a question, very useful. But the reality is more like the image with the paintbrush, where they tend to highlight everything because that makes them feel good, like they've done a lot of revision, a lot of work, or they absent-mindedly highlight, so daydreaming, and now and again feel like I haven't highlighted something for a while, and so they'll highlight things at random. Rereading is another kind of dangerous technique where they can sit in front of a book going through their notes or going through a revision guide, and because they've spent 20 minutes staring at the pages, which in reality is probably 2 minutes looking at the pages and 14 minutes daydreaming and another 5 minutes looking at their phone, rereading is not a very effective tool. They feel like they've done something, but actually they haven't really remembered that much. Summarizing text is similar to highlighting in that if it's done well, it can be very effective. But if it's picking out bits of information at random, odd bullet points here and there when they kind of remember that they're supposed to be writing things down, it's not massively helpful. So why these techniques are not effective? They are low challenge. Little thinking is required. If the brain is not working hard enough, then this information is not going to go into long-term memory. It's going to go into the short-term memory, if at all, and make them feel like they're doing something. It's the illusion of revision. It's the I've sat and stared at my book for 20 minutes and so I feel like I've done something, or I've highlighted this page, it makes me feel like I've done something. They don't have this information using these techniques in their long-term memory. So, ways to revise effectively using repetition. They need to follow these 3 steps you can see in front of you: create, recall, and apply. So the first stage, creating, is that they need to make something. For whatever they're revising, they always need to be creating. So this could be a mind map, flashcards, or notes. This is a really easy way for you to check and monitor their revision. That if they say they've been revising biology, you can ask them what they've created. You can ask to see that revision. If they can't show you anything, then that revision hasn't been effective. And what we really want is to make sure that our students don't waste revision time. And the first time they realise that it hasn't really worked is when they get into that exam and they can't remember anything. Next stage is recall. So whatever they've made, their mind map, their flashcards, or their notes, they need to go over them again. They can't just make them and then bank them and never look at them again. So we have very conscientious students who make lots of lovely mind maps, very detailed, piles and piles of flashcards, but then they never go over them. They get to the exam, they say, but I did revise, I did work hard, look at all this I did, and they don't get the result that they expected. It's because they don't go over that information and repeat it. So there are a few ideas for recall here, but they're welcome to come up with their own. So 10-minute rule, using a blank piece of paper to recall what they know on a subject will show them where to focus their revision in the next stage. So if they've made their mind map on Hitler's rise to power, they then get a blank piece of paper, turn their mind map over, and they try and recreate that mind map on Hitler's rise to power. And very quickly, it will show them where the gaps in their knowledge are, where are the bits that haven't stuck in their long-term memory. They can go back to that mind map, look at the bits that they found harder to remember, highlight them, try and embed them further, and then give it another go. Make or use the flashcards sounds obvious, but often they make flashcards and then never look at them again. Getting someone to test you or test themselves, asking questions based on the notes or the mind maps. Post-it notes, if there's information that's really, they're struggling to stick the information in their brain, often this is when they're working with small details, statistics, dates, facts. Post-it notes can be useful. Stick them on the bedroom wall, stick them on a desk, and when they feel they've mastered them, they can chuck them in the bin. Image and keyword prompts, going over the mind maps, the notes, or the flashcards, and trying to distill the information down to one keyword or one image. This really helps the brain in the exam. If they can take a lot of detailed information and condense it until they're down to, for Hitler's rise to power, say 6 keyword prompts that will then act as triggers for the brain in the exam situation to all of that other detailed information. Rubber ducking is a good one. They pick any object of their choice in their room and they have to tell that object out loud everything they can about whatever it is they've been studying. So if they've been looking at volcanic eruptions in geography, they tell the object everything they know about volcanic eruptions. By speaking out loud, what happens is they quickly trip up on the areas they have gaps in. They find they can't get the words out, they stumble, and they realise they have to go back to their notes because they didn't know as much as they thought they did about it. Final stage then is apply. They could know everything they needed to know, have revised brilliantly, but if they don't know how to approach it in an exam situation, in the exam questions, then they could lose marks that they deserve. So past papers, practice questions will be available for all of their subjects on exam board websites. They can also ask their teachers for guidance on this, and there'll be practice questions and revision guides. They must see if they can actually use what they've revised to answer the questions. It's one of the best ways to check that they've done the adequate amount of revision and the right kind of revision. Okay, and for further information, if you would like to look at more strategies or more research behind all of this, then there's a website at the bottom that you're welcome to investigate. Final point then, when to recall. So read what it says on the screen. Rather than cramming all of your revision for each subject into one block, it's better to space it out from now through to the exams. It gives you some forgetting time. This means that when you come back to it a few weeks later, you will have to think harder, which actually helps you to remember it. So, for instance, if they've just made their notes on the process of photosynthesis, they may feel that they know it. I know that subject really well. Well, of course they feel like that because they've just made the notes. So it's gone into their short-term memory. If they leave it 4 or 5 days and then get that blank piece of paper, what can they remember about photosynthesis? They can see how much that information has stuck. I'm not saying they're going to do a graph like the one on the screen. I don't think it should be planned out quite that scientifically. But if they work on the basis that they do a bit of biology one day, the next time they do biology, they'll review what they did last time on the biology day before moving on to the next thing, and that should really help them. Couple of quotes to end with. So at the top, difficulties during the learning process help to strengthen learning and memory, because when learning is easy, it is often superficial and soon forgotten. The harder the brain works, the more likely it is that this knowledge will stick in their minds. And essentially, if they are just sailing through revision and really quite enjoying year 11, then maybe they need to be working just that little bit harder, because I don't think anybody finds revision easy when it's done well. And at the bottom, that last little quote, so the secret to getting good grades is to study hard. Seems a little extreme, but unfortunately, there is no magic secret, magic trick to it. They do just have to work very hard. Okay, thank you for listening. If you have made it right to the end of the PowerPoint, and I hope you found something of use in there. Good luck with the revision for the exams.